Hello everyone, and welcome to my Beyond the Gates official channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. In the emotional whirlwind that sweeps through Beyond the Gates, the moment Kat discovers that her biological mother is Leslie. Yes, the same Leslie whose sudden reappearance in the town has already ignited chaos, suspicion, and 1,000 whispered questions, becomes the catalyst for one of the most unforgettable departures the series has ever delivered, because from the instant Kat finds the truth in that faded, creased envelope tucked in the back of the antique chest in the Richardson attic, her entire world collapses inward, shattering every assumption she has built about who she is, where she came from, and why she never fit completely into the neat little family narrative she had been told her whole life. And as the camera follows her trembling hands pulling out the photographs, grainy images of a young Leslie cradling a newborn, her expression hovering between terror and love, Kat feels her heart pounding like it's trying to escape her own chest, her breath turning shallow as the realization crashes over her. The woman who has been circling the edges of her life with cryptic comments, half-finished stories, and awkward hints was not some eccentric distant cousin, not a family friend, not even one of the many town eccentrics, but her mother, the one person she had always believed she would recognize instinctively, the one she imagined would have a familiar warmth. And instead the truth comes wrapped in lies, secrecy, and decades of desperation, which is why when she storms out of the attic and confronts Leslie in the middle of the winter pass-through hallway of the Gates mansion, her voice shakes with betrayal as she demands to know why she was abandoned, why she was left to grow up believing someone else had given birth to her, why she had to find out through stolen documents and not through a single ounce of courage or honesty. And Leslie, overwhelmed, barely able to speak, tries to explain that she was young, terrified, threatened by people who never wanted the child to exist, people whose power in the town was deep enough to erase a person's existence with a signature, and as she reaches for Kat's hand, Kat steps back, refusing to be soothed by the same woman who orchestrated years of silence, because pain at this magnitude cannot be softened by apologies, no matter how heartfelt. And in that moment Kat realizes that staying in this town, this labyrinth of secrets, betrayals, and hidden parentage, will only suffocate her, fill her with resentment, and keep her locked in the shadows of choices made long before she was old enough to speak. So she makes the decision that shocks everyone, from Chelsea to Madison to Tomas, who, for the first time in the entire series, appears genuinely speechless. When she stands in the town square, her suitcase clutched in her trembling hand, and announces that she is leaving Beyond Ridge, leaving the Gates estate, leaving the tangled web of lies that have defined her since birth, and heading somewhere far away where she can breathe without hearing whispers of what Leslie did or didn't do, where she can reinvent herself as something other than someone's secret daughter or someone's cover-up. And although everyone around her pleads, begs, reasons, Chelsea crying that Kat has been her only stability, Madison shouting that families fight but they don't run, Ted muttering that the timing couldn't be worse with everything happening around the Gates investigation, Kat remains unmovable. Because this isn't running away, she tells them in a voice steadier than any they've heard from her. This is choosing herself for the first time, choosing her peace, choosing a life where she is not the product of shame or fear. And when Leslie herself appears, eyes red and voice breaking as she admits she should have told the truth years ago, should have faced the consequences, should have given her daughter the chance to know her without the veil of deceit, Kat listens but does not break. Because forgiveness does not arrive instantly, not for wounds carved this deeply, and as the warm sunset washes over the town square, the people silently watching, Shanice, Nicole, Isaiah, even Andre's empty footsteps echoing from earlier episodes, Kat takes one last look at the only place she has ever known and walks away, her boots clacking against the cobblestone as the taxi door opens, the engine rumbling like a heartbeat pushing her forward, and the camera lingers on her face, a storm of sadness, resolve, and fragile hope all tangled together, capturing the exact moment Kat stops being just another troubled daughter in Beyond the Gates and becomes the architect of her own destiny. And though the town will talk, theorize, and mourn her absence in the coming episodes, Chelsea blaming herself, Madison suspecting Leslie is still hiding more, Tomas throwing accusations in every direction to distract from his own guilt. Kat's departure marks a turning point in the season, a shift in the emotional gravity of the series, because her choice to step away from a mother she never knew she had is not just a plot twist, it is a declaration, a reclamation of identity, and a sign that even in a place where secrets choke the air and bloodlines twist like shadows at dusk, a person can still choose truth over comfort, distance over suffocation, and self-discovery over inherited pain. And as the final shot fades, the music swelling with heartbreak and possibility, fans are left wondering whether Kat will ever return, whether she and Leslie will ever rebuild what was destroyed before it even began, and whether the town, shaken once again by revelations that refuse to stay buried, will survive the emotional earthquake that one young woman's departure has unleashed upon Beyond the Gates. The fallout from Kat's departure sends shockwaves through Beyond the Gates in a way no one in the town could have predicted, because the moment her taxi disappears beyond the tree line, an eerie, suffocating silence settles over Beyond Ridge, the kind of silence that pulls at the seams of people's lives until they feel everything unraveling beneath their feet, and Chelsea is the first to break, collapsing in the middle of the gate's courtyard as she whispers Kat's name like a prayer she never learned to say properly, blaming herself over and over for not being supportive enough, for not insisting harder that Kat stay, for not protecting her from the truth even though she knows deep down that the truth always finds a way to claw its way to the surface. But her grief turns quickly into anger. Anger at Leslie, anger at Kat's adoptive family, anger at the town that always seems to thrive on secrets until they explode. While Madison tries to hold her steady even though she herself feels like the ground has disappeared from beneath her, because Kat wasn't just another friend to her. Kat was the person she confided in when the world grew too heavy, the one who understood her loneliness without needing it explained, and losing that connection leaves Madison hollow, pacing her room late into the night as she replays every conversation the two of them shared, searching desperately for a sign she missed, a clue that Kat's world was cracking long before it finally shattered. Meanwhile, Leslie retreats into herself, becoming a ghost within her own home, unable to erase the image of her daughter stepping away from her with eyes full of betrayal, and she spends her days wandering the gate's greenhouse, touching the wilted petals like they're fragments of memories she's losing one by one, whispering apologies into empty spaces as if Kat might somehow hear them, but guilt is a cruel companion, and Leslie's chest tightens with every breath as she wonders whether she did the right thing all those years ago, or if she only succeeded in creating the perfect storm of abandonment that has now detonated and taken her daughter with it. And even Tomas, who pretends to be the center of every crisis but rarely feels anything with real depth, finds himself affected, pacing near the lake and muttering that Kat leaving messes with everything, though no one knows whether he means emotionally or strategically, since Tomas has always been the type to calculate people's pain the way others calculate the weather, but even he cannot deny the eerie shift in the town's atmosphere, because Kat's absence feels like a missing heartbeat, the kind that leaves everyone listening too closely for the echo of something that is no longer there. Ted, always the reluctant hero in these moments, attempts to gather everyone for a late-night campfire meeting at the old cabin, insisting that Kat wouldn't want them to fall apart like this, that the only way to honor her choice is to stay united. But his words fall flat as tension thickens the air, Madison's voice breaking as she demands to know how they can stay united when Leslie is still hiding things, when the town is still haunted by generations of lies, and when Kat finally chose escape as her only path to survival, and Leslie, trembling in the corner, refuses to speak up in her own defense, realizing that every explanation she offers sounds like just another excuse born from fear instead of love. And the rising conflict boils over when Chelsea storms out of the cabin, screaming that she won't forgive Leslie until Kat comes home, and even then she isn't sure she can forgive her, and Madison chases after her, the camera following the two of them through the forest as they argue, cry, and cling to each other in the darkness. But even in their grief they fail to notice the shadow figure watching them from behind the trees. A figure whose presence suggests that Kat's departure has awakened something older, Something dangerous. Something that has been waiting patiently for the perfect moment to step back into play. Meanwhile, miles away on a lonely bus heading toward an unnamed city, Kat sits with her forehead pressed against the window as lights streak by like blurred memories she never asked for, trying to convince herself she made the right decision, even as tears roll silently down her cheeks, because leaving does not instantly heal a wound. It only stops others from ripping it wider. And the weight of what she has lost presses into her ribs like a bruise. Yet for the first time, she breathes air that isn't thick with the expectations of others, and the freedom is both terrifying and exhilarating, making her wonder who she will become when she is no longer defined by secrets she never agreed to keep. And the show lingers on her thoughts, letting the audience see the war inside her. A part of her aching to return, another part pushing her forward, and a third part, smaller, quieter, whispering that the truth about Leslie might only be the beginning of the lies tangled around her birth. Back in Beyond Ridge, the town council meets in a tense emergency session because Kat's abrupt exit has, unbeknownst to most, disrupted a legal agreement tied to the Gates estate inheritance, and her leaving triggers a clause that reactivates the dormant investigation into long-buried family records, sending the elders of the town into panic, especially those whose power depends on those secrets staying buried, and they begin to question whether Leslie's confession was entirely voluntary or whether it was forced by a chain of events now spiraling out of their control, and this paranoia bleeds into every part of the town, setting off whispers in the diner, murmurs in the market, and tense glances among families who suddenly fear their own skeletons might be next to come crashing out of the dark, while Leslie, more broken by the hour, finds a letter slipped under her door with no signature, only a single line written in jagged handwriting. She had to leave. You'll understand soon. And the moment she reads it, terror freezes her in place, her breath catching as she realizes someone else has been watching, someone else knew the truth about Kat long before she did, and someone else might now be pulling strings she didn't even know existed. And as the camera sweeps from Leslie's trembling hands to the storm rolling over Beyond Ridge, the tension in the episode coils tighter, promising that Kat's choice to leave was not an ending at all, but the opening move in a much larger, more dangerous story that is only beginning to reveal itself in the shadows of Beyond the Gates. As the storm tightens its grip on Beyond Ridge, the emotional fractures left behind by Kat's departure deepen into chasms that threaten to swallow the town whole, because the next morning dawns with a heavy gray sky and an unnatural stillness that sends an uneasy shiver through everyone who steps outside, and Chelsea, who didn't sleep at all, stands in front of Kat's empty locker at the community hall, tracing her fingertips over the stickers Kat placed there years ago, a collage of inside jokes and little symbols that suddenly feel like relics from a happier lifetime, and her chest tightens as she wonders how someone can be so present one moment and then vanish the next, leaving behind echoes that hurt more than the silence, while Madison, her face pale from worry and exhaustion, tries to pull Chelsea away before she spirals again, telling her that Kat is strong, that she will survive, that maybe Kat needs this time to finally breathe without the weight of her family's secrets crushing her, but the words taste hollow even as she speaks them, because deep down Madison fears that Kat's departure is not just a journey but a break, a fracture that might never fully heal no matter how many apologies Leslie offers. Meanwhile, in her secluded house at the edge of the woods, Leslie sits motionless at her dining table, staring at the cryptic letter left under her door, her mind racing through possibilities she has spent decades avoiding, trying to make sense of the ominous message while pushing back a tidal wave of memories she buried long before Kat was born, memories of the powerful people who insisted that the truth must never surface, memories of threats whispered in dark corners, and the night she made the impossible choice that has now come back to destroy the fragile relationship she desperately hoped she could rebuild. And as she runs her hands through her hair, her breathing uneven, she hears a faint rustling at the window and freezes, glancing up to see the shadow of a figure slipping away into the trees, too fast to identify, too quiet to be natural, and panic slices through her as she realizes the letter wasn't a warning. It was a reminder that she is still being watched, still being controlled, still part of a game she thought she escaped years ago. At the same time, Ted begins digging through the old Gates estate archives, insisting that if they can uncover the truth behind Kat's adoption, maybe they can find something, anything, that will help bring her home. But as he pulls dusty files from the basement shelves, he notices pages missing, dates redacted, entire sections ripped out with surgical precision, and the deeper he digs, the clearer it becomes that Kat's story doesn't start with Leslie at all, but with a network of powerful families who have been shaping the destinies of Beyond Ridge's residents for generations, hiding children, forging records, orchestrating disappearances, and ensuring that no one ever learns the true lineage of those born under the shadow of the Gates. Meanwhile, far away on the bus, Kat tries to steady her racing thoughts as she stares out at endless fields blurred by rain, wondering if leaving was the only way to regain control of her life, yet unable to shake the gnawing fear that she didn't just walk away from her past. She walked straight into the unknown without any plan, and her phone buzzes with messages she refuses to read, afraid of being pulled back before she's ready to face the ruins of her identity. And as she grips the locket she didn't even remember packing, she feels a strange weight inside it, heavier than she remembered, and when she opens it she discovers a tiny folded note tucked behind the faded photo, a note she swears wasn't there before, one that reads in the same jagged handwriting as the message left for Leslie. "She cannot protect you anymore." And the blood drains from Kat's face as she realizes someone knew she would leave. Someone predicted her every move. Someone has been close enough to slip a note into her locket without her noticing, and as she glances around the bus, her breath sharpens when she spots a hooded figure seated 3 rows back, still, silent, face hidden, not looking at her, but somehow watching her without moving at all. Back home, the storm worsens as Chelsea and Madison rush to the Gates mansion to confront Leslie, demanding answers, demanding the truth about who would want to twist Kat's life into a nightmare and why someone is stalking her family. But when they burst into Leslie's home, they find her trembling, pale, clutching the edge of the table as she finally reveals what she has feared all along, that Kat's birth was never meant to happen, that powerful people in the town had tried to force her to give the baby away to prevent an inheritance scandal that the Gates estate was involved in, ways she never fully understood but was too terrified to question, and that the same shadowy group manipulated records, threatened her life, and swore that if she ever told the truth, they would come for her and her child. And Madison's eyes widen in horror as she realizes Kat hasn't just run away from emotional chaos. She might have walked right into the path of people who have spent decades watching her from afar, waiting for the moment she became vulnerable, because Kat leaving Beyond Ridge didn't free her. It made her easier to reach. The episode crescendos as the camera cuts between Kat tightening her grip on her bag as the hooded figure slowly rises in the back of the bus, the storm violently shaking the trees around Leslie's house as she confesses everything, and Ted discovering a hidden file in the Gates archives sealed with a symbol he has never seen before. One that matches a strange mark Kat has always had on her shoulder, a mark she once joked was a birthmark but now seems like a clue that her entire existence is tied to something far bigger, far darker, and far older than any of them realized. And as thunder cracks across the sky, the screen fades to black, leaving viewers breathless, terrified, and desperate for answers as the mystery behind Kat's past deepens and Beyond the Gates plunges into the most haunting storyline the series has ever crafted. The story explodes into its next terrifying chapter as Part 4 begins with a storm-swept bus barreling down the highway while Kat, her hands trembling around the locket now tainted with the fear of that chilling message, tries to convince herself she's imagining the hooded figure 3 rows behind her, but every time she looks away she feels the weight of unseen eyes burning into her back, and the quiet hum of the engine grows oppressive as her mind races through everything she's heard. Leslie's cryptic warnings, the whispers around the Gates estate, the sense that her entire life has been curated, manipulated, watched, and as the bus driver announces the next stop, Kat's pulse skyrockets because she realizes the hooded figure stands at the exact same moment she rises, following her movements with perfect precision, and when she steps into the aisle the figure mirrors her step for step, turning the narrow walkway into a suffocating corridor of dread. So Kat bolts, pushing past passengers as she stumbles toward the front door, forcing herself off the vehicle into the pouring rain as the bus hisses away, its red taillights disappearing into the mist while her breath steams in the cold air, and she glances back to see whether the hooded figure exited too, but the street is empty, eerily silent, leaving her more shaken because the absence is more terrifying than the presence. Meanwhile, back in Beyond Ridge, Chelsea and Madison sit with Leslie in her dimly lit living room. As thunder rattles the windows, and Leslie, pale and trembling, tries to steady herself enough to reveal the truth she has avoided for decades, confessing that Kat's conception was tied to a scandal so explosive it could have detonated the entire Gates family dynasty, explaining in fragmented whispers that a forbidden relationship within the Gates bloodline produced Kat.